giving a 0% loan to the government, is the way I would put it.
You're giving the government money that I'm number one in my opinion. I know this sounds like very kind of.
Go ahead.
They don't deserve it.
No.
And, but if you underpay the government, they cream you on penalties.
Yeah, plus it's come with tax.
So what a lot of brokers in the office do is they basically take every commission and they take 30% out of it.
I've been doing that.
And they,
but then I did actual math today. And it's like, oh my God.
yeah.
Okay. All right, just double checking.
The difference is when you get a paycheck, it's just taken out.
I know.
It's the same
It's the
thing.
same thing.
It's the same thing.
So it's like-
extra 7.
What's that?
It's like for the extra 7.5% that the employer is not paying for you.
The other thing to remember, Chris, and
Mhm.
this goes for all of you,
Mhm.
is that there are a tremendous number of expenses
Yes.
when you perform this business that you
Yes.
should be writing off. There's a lot.
Right, but I don't do that now necessarily. I'll do that.
There's a good app
Oh.
that's super easy.
You should be doing it now. You should be.
I know, but for my payment though, is what I'm saying.
I got the
Well, that's a good question.
called Expensify, and it's just a free app that logs into your email. But what's nice is if you turn it on when you're in the car, it will track your miles.
Oh shit.
And then if you have a receipt, like when you pay, you can link it to your credit card, so it will show you your payments. And you can just click like this one's business, this one's business, this one is.
That's interesting.
So Expensify I really like. And speaking of apps, I also got another cool one that you guys might like. It's called City Maps, but it's really good, I think, if you have clients who are relocating here, because you can make maps specific to a client and send them that map. So if they are looking for school districts, you can make a map with that, or if they're looking for restaurants, or if they are looking for art galleries, whatever. But it's called City Maps. And that way, I know Boulder pretty well, but I don't know Longmont. So you can go and download some that other people have made in Longmont and then tweak them for you. So it's really cool.
What's it called?
It's called City Maps.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, I'll show you. So this is the map that I have pulled up right now for Boulder. So this is showing everything. It's showing, all these different restaurants, and this looks like CU Presents Theater, so whatever. But you could also go to restaurants, and it will only show you the restaurants. So then what you could do with it is under Me. I haven't played with it a lot, but you could go and make your own map that says, so like these places I want to try or whatever, you can make one that says Rich Dana looking to relocate here.
Okay.
And you can go and click on all those little things you think that that client would be interested in. And then when you get to your map, you can download it. Like you could download your map and send it to somebody.
Okay. Okay. And they'd have it like as a PDF?
They could have it as a PDF, or if they have the app, they'd have the interactive part.
Okay.
But then it will show them, you're moving to Mapleton Hill, here's the walking trails over there. Or
Okay. Gotcha. So there is one call I will have to take. It's from our law firm about an emergency situation with a broker in the office. It's a good one, and so I think I'll share the basics of it with you, since none of you are involved in it at all, and that we are in a situation where we are representing the buyers on a property in West Denver, and they came up with an inspection resolution where the seller would fix a number of items on or before this last Monday.
Was that closing or just that was the date?
Closing's at 3:00 today.
Okay.
The seller was supposed to present all invoices to our buyer agent in our office by Monday.
Mhm.
They've had about a month to get all this work done. There's a lot of nicky-nacky stuff, like some electrical work, some plumbing, not the end of the world, not Pandora's box. We're not really sure, how much it's going to cost, but you could pretty much say that all of these things combined are going to be under $1,000. Okay. However, there's one really big one, and that is the structural work. They went out there, they had a structural engineer, they went through the whole rigmarole during the inspection period. They said, this is the structural work that has to be done. So the work needed to be done, then the structural engineer needed to come back, confirm the work had been done correctly, and then give some sort of documentation that's stamped, because structural engineers actually do like a stamp on their document and say, yeah, the work's been done correctly. Jimmy, would you mind grabbing the door?
And,
Thanks.
Does the city have to do a permit and all that kind of stuff?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't believe so. They may need a building permit, they may not. I guess it would depend on the municipality,
Okay.
but I don't know. That would be something that the structural engineer would coordinate with the contractor that they're using to actually do the work. Okay, that is the biggie, and there has been nothing provided in regards to that. And our broker has been calling and emailing the listing broker every single day. And even as of Wednesday, sent over an amend extend saying, what's up? You know, we need to push closing back a week because we're gonna need time to review these. So this is a team that we're dealing with on the other side. So there's a couple people, and the big question is, you know, what are you guys, how are you coordinated? What, as a team, I don't think they're really doing a good job of communicating with each other. And so they called the broker in our office this morning and said, hey, we got a leash on our guy, our seller now, we're to get these things to you. It's like, you're 4 days late. Our buyer still wants to buy the property. The seller is in default. Did they adhere to the terms of the contract? No. But what happens? Because we still want to close. And so logical explanation number one would be extend closing. Logical explanation number two would be escrow. Why don't you think we could escrow in this situation? What would cause a problem with an escrow?
Because the structural damage, the lender's gonna have a problem.
Exactly. The lender's not gonna like the structural work. Okay. So that's not gonna happen. So we need to have the structural work completed.
So
If
you
it
need
was,
to just push back.
we really need to push it back, or we need the invoices within the next hour.
Invoices that show that it's all clear and nothing else is an issue. Because if you get something back that says, you know, everything except X, Y, and Z is gonna be fine.
Then we,
Do they know that the work has started at all?
the structural work is really hard to tell. And I couldn't give you an exact detail of what exactly it is, but the structural work is tough to tell.
Did they get the other kind of knick-knack invoices yet? Is it just the structural they're waiting on, or everything?
We have been informed that the knick-knack stuff's going on this morning and being repaired this morning.
Weird. Why did they wait?
They suck.
Well, I mean,
So this is the good example of
Is
listing
this the
brokers and
seller's
sellers
side?
that suck.
well, that's the same
No,
thing
is
that I
this
just
the
had
seller
where
or
we
is
had to
it
wait for the city, but
broker?
he didn't do it because he didn't have the money.
Hang
to
on,
do
I
it
can't
until we
hear
put in.
everybody at the same time.
Without-
What were you saying?
One reason that I could see them not doing the work, which was what I encountered on my deal, we were told the subdivision was already in process, and we came to find out that it wasn't. And the reason it wasn't is that they waited until they got some money from us to start paying the city for the subdivision. And so, I mean, one reason that the seller may not have done the work is they did not have the money to do the work until now.
That's possible, that maybe they had to wait till their last paycheck. Maria, what was your question?
I was just wondering if your agent knew if it was the team or if it was the seller who.
We don't. We don't, and that's gonna be hard to determine in any situation. So,
But either way, I mean, if they still want to close, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're being held up,
you know, an interesting situation is that in this situation, in Carly's situation, and frankly, Jimmy, in your situation, we're having problems as a result of, in my opinion, brokers on the other side not doing their job. We really are. And welcome to the industry.
Yeah.
That is the industry. That is the industry. And so you as a broker, when you regardless of which side you represent, the more proactive you can be to get things done, the better. Okay.
and the proactive in this situation was that your broker sent out the amend extend to push that closing rather than waiting for it to come from the other side.
I think the lesson learned on our broker would have been by everything was due on Monday at 11:59 p.m., I would have been pretty much just totally, blowing up the phones and being completely obnoxious by Tuesday morning and saying, no, guys, this isn't going to be something we're going to give us the stuff late. Every day you delay is every day we delay closing.
Yeah.
And
But can they delay closing? So how does that work legally? Can your broker delay closing without an amend, extend, push back closing?
no, you can't.
So they're in violation because they didn't give you what you needed. They're in default.
Right.
But you're kind of left empty-handed because unless they agree to push back closing, you have the option of either closing without the documentation you need or walking away from the deal.
So what do you think you do? You're in this position, you're the buyer's agent, what would you do?
I would present them with both the options of you can either walk away at this point, you'll get your earnest money back because they're in default, is that correct?
Most likely.
Or, it sounds like you want to close. We can try our very best to get closing pushed back until we have this documentation. It might come down to the wire and it might happen that without the documentation that you really want, we're going to have to close or not. So,
And as a good buyer's agent in this situation with structural engineering work outstanding, you probably should advise them that it wouldn't be in your best interest to close.
unless they plan on paying for it or just period.
Unless they plan on just eating the cost.
Right.
They could also retain legal counsel on Tuesday morning and be like, you can retain legal counsel. The other thing you can do as a broker is just take a position like this is what's going to go on.
Right.
Like you can just, and I know Lynn pulled this crap on you a number of times, which was, this is what we're doing. Every day you guys delay on this, we're delaying closing.
Whether that's true or not.
Whether it's true or not. Brokers do that all the time. They do it all the time. And as a good broker on the opposing side of that argument, you could say, well, show me where in the contract it says that's what we're going to do, because that's actually not what we've agreed to. But you would be amazed how many times as a broker that just works. You just, hey, every day, yeah, exactly. Every day you guys delay is every day we're delaying closing. We had an agreement. This was the day. Okay.
So if the seller has changed their mind about selling, then this would be their best scenario.
If the buyer retains legal counsel, the seller's in a specific performance contract. A seller can't say, well, I didn't deliver you titles, so we're not closing. I didn't show up to closing, so we're not closing. They can't just do that. I mean, the buyer retains legal counsel, the buyer shows up to closing, the seller never shows up, the lender's there, the money's there, everything's ready to go, and the seller just never shows up.
Well, in terms of a structural issue where this is a major deal, and this is a make or break aspect. And they know, I mean, from the seller's point of view, either the buyer eats the cost and signs today.
And sues them after.
Or can't close because the lender won't let them.
The lender won't let them close. Well, yeah, you
falls apart.
You come into some challenging situations here because, we talked about in our last meeting inspection resolutions, and there are some items that we may, not necessarily address entirely with the lender. Needs a GFCI in the bathroom. The sellers and the buyers agree to take a credit for it. Kind of freaks me out a little bit because it's a safety item, right? The house was built in 1960 though, okay? Is the lender going to be upset about that? Probably not. Can you have a conversation with the lender about that? Probably. There's a limit to how far you probably should be going with this. If there's a bad roof, if there's carbon monoxide spewing from the furnace, if there's a gas leak, if there's things that could kill your client, if there's things where the house is literally falling apart and you guys don't disclose that to the lender, you're now, not real. That's probably, I would really like you to come to me and have a conversation about it because it's just not a place you want to go. Okay, there's a limit on what lenders, what lenders are okay with and what lenders are not okay with. And of course, the first phone call is to the lender to say, these are the items we're putting on the inspection resolution. We're going to repair these items. Is that okay? Yeah, that's fine. We may need receipts. We may ask you for receipts prior to closing. So if the seller does the work themselves, that may be a challenging moment for all of you, right? But when we start getting into monetary credits, the conversation needs to occur with the lender to say what's the best way to handle this. And that conversation is best done on the phone. Okay? That makes sense?
Mhm.
Jamie, can we finish up on yours?
Which part? There's so many things going on.
I'd like to do Louisville, and I'd like to have you give Jefferson. I'd like to have you give an update to everybody on where exactly that has evolved since our last conversation, if you're comfortable with that. Okay, because I think that's going to close. So it's, I think that deal is pretty much done at this
Right.
point.
I have a
So-
question in regard to that. As far as landlord-tenant law goes,
Mhm.
when you lease a property and you put a tenant in it, does it have to be a code? I imagine it does.
You have to pass a rental license inspection.
Well,
Technically.
no.
In the city of Boulder.
Yeah, it's only city of Boulder.
In the city of Boulder.
So
And
we
are there
put
any
property
grandfather
there.
clauses for older homes or things like
Louisville does
that?
not require a rental license.
That isn't, okay.
I don't believe
No, it does not.
No.
So it's municipality to municipality.
Okay.
Boulder has decided in its wisdom to create another layer of government to tax you more so that they can do this.
Right.
Sorry,
Trees and license.
did I just slip that in? Sorry.
Boulder is
Yeah.
regulations is their favorite word.
Okay, so on our objection,
occupancy might be an issue too. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Not in your case.
so on Jefferson, they gave us an offer for less than this price, which has always been in the back of my client's mind.
They're a little frustrated by that, I would say.
I think they've handled it really well, but it definitely kind of haunts them
The
that
seller.
we're the seller. We're hoping that, the inspection would go pretty well. Everything would go pretty well because they're getting a screaming deal. You're kind of hoping that mentality carries through. But as far as the inspection objection goes, you guys helped us work on that last time. And we had like 13 items they wanted us to address. 4 were pretty serious, like the water heater, which was going to be removed or replaced.
This is not the
sewer scope
countertop
cleaning.
one with the tenants. This is the other one.
This is the other one. Sewer scope cleaning. GFI, they wanted to up the amps in the oven, which is 3. What was the 4th thing? There were 4 pretty.
There was a cracked window.
Pressure test on the gas
Pressure
line.
test in the gas line. So those 4 we chose not to address. My clients would go up, like, go pound sand, you can deal with that. Take all your extra money that you have.
Can I stop you right there real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jamie and I filled out the inspection objection. There were 4 significant items on there that the sellers had concluded they did not want to address. So the way that we wrote that up in the inspection objection was to just not put them in the inspection resolution. So when we did the inspection resolution, we basically took in one way or another and rewrote the items we were willing to address and how we were willing to address them. Okay? And there was no mention of it being done by a professional. We just said seller shall repair leaky faucet, or I don't really
Well, like
remember
one of
what
them
they
was
were.
Seller agrees to move the bookcase
Right.
from the crawl
Yeah.
space to allow entry. So I didn't say anything about accessibility, so that was good.
Right.
Right, and we're not cleaning it either. We're just moving the bookcase, but you want us to address it, we'll address it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's how we,
So
That's how
you
we-
are only doing the resolution, is all you send out in your situation.
that's all we do. And one question Jamie asked me, it was a good question, I think you all may have the same question, is, well, what do we do about the items that we're not addressing? And the answer is nada. We don't do a thing. We just,
They don't bring it back up.
we don't bring them back up. Okay? And you'll be amazed how many green agents will be like, we
No,
maybe,
came back, here's the resolution.
what,
The green agents will just kind of go to their buyer and say, here's the resolution with the items you talked about. Sign it.
right, sign it. And then we get a month down the road and we're close to closing and the green agent may say, well, what about these other items? And the answer to that is, you guys agreed to take them as is, okay? Because they were not in the inspection resolution or in any other format that we may have come to a resolution on. Now, Jamie, go on with your story. This is
Okay.
pretty good.
So we did put in there because we were not working with the lender. This is a good teaching moment, right? So
Uh-huh.
since we're not working with the lender, I was allowed to put money in the resolution. So I did agree, the sellers did agree to pay $300 as per the work order for the window replacement. We're gonna just hand them the work order and they can order and put them in. Yeah, I'm not gonna do it, we're gonna give them $300 for that. And then, so we sent that off to the other side, and then I got a phone call yesterday afternoon from the other agent, and he said, it seems odd, I'm gonna go to voicemail, of course. So he's like, it seems odd that the 4 items that we care the most about weren't even addressed. And talked about it with my buyers, they're really important items to them. We've gone back and forth on a lot of the expenses that might have come about because
Wait,
of
you guys
those.
all have the same.
And we think it's gonna be about $1,500. And if your sellers would agree to pay us $1,500, then we'll keep moving forward. And part of us, me, was a little bit like, you know, if we want to give you one more dime,
Yeah.
just maybe object to all of it or not agree to that portion. But my job is to give it to my sellers, right? And tell them, here's what's on the table. How do you feel about it? What do you guys want to do? And they came back and felt like, they slept on overnight, called me this morning, and she said, you know what? We did all the pros and cons of everything that's involved, and in some ways we feel like we're still winning. So we're going to give them $1,500 and walk away. Because we think that heater is a can of worms. They do too. And
It's a Pandora's box.
So having just one monetary transaction to sweep everything underneath the rug is, yeah, certainly to their
Right.
benefit and not have to go this process.
Right. Right. And we'd have felt a lot better about it had they given us a little bit closer to asking. But the bottom line is they can still walk away by just writing a check. And I think that means a lot to them right now.
And going back to list it again and go through this with another potential buyer, and we may end up with even less, and they'll think even harder
Right.
on the inspection.
And she admitted if they wanted to take the time and relist it and play hardball, they would. But they're like, you know what, we're good. So they're doing exactly what they want to do. And we're giving in another $1,500, but
On top of the 300.
on top of the 300, on top of the less than list. But, you know, they still feel like they're in a place where
And are they still doing, sorry, I know I walked out, but are they still doing the items that they said they would?
they are. Because they felt good about doing those items and delivering
Anyway,
it home in a good condition. Yeah.
Now, we spoke this morning.
Yeah.
So tell everybody about how we're going to handle the request for the other items. And
So
why
I
we're
wasn't
handling it
sure-
that
Yeah, and
way.
I wasn't sure how to write the $1,500, and I didn't want to admit anything in the resolution that would be adverse to my client. But because we don't have a lender, we can put the monetary back in there, so we did. And then Rich guided me to say, basically, seller shall pay $1,500 to buyer at closing. What did I
As
say?
a credit to closing clause.
No, because there's no lender. But, well, so we didn't deal with that, we said we $1,500. What do you say?
We just said seller shall credit buyer $1,500 at closing for resolution of all other items listed on the inspection objection.
That's what I said. All other items listed on the inspection objection that were not mentioned above. I just
Perfect,
put those words, they
perfect.
were not mentioned above, this takes care of them.
And you know what's really cool about that is there's now a really distinct paper trail that, you know, let's say they come back and they dig into this water heater that's in this bathroom and they get 3 bids, which by the way, they haven't done.
And I think, so here's where I think this agent has failed.
So if you were the buyer's agent.
Oh, this
So if
agent,
this agent has guided this at all, and he's kind of said, you know, a new water heater's $1,000, $800, you know, that's a big deal. 1,500 should be fine. When they find out that they could be between, we think, $2,000 to $5,000 to fix this, if they want to bring it to code, they're not gonna be very happy with their agent. I don't,
no, and it's a really hard argument to come back to you guys, right? Because they're like, well, gosh, if we break down these 4 items, you know, and we divide it by 4, you guys hardly gave us you gave us $300 for this hot water heater. At the end of the day, they signed off on it.
and I called the city this morning because it kept claiming that this hot water heater was violating code.
Why are you
I
digging
called-
into it?
Just because I'm out of my own knowledge, I just called the city, I was some, you know, unidentified person.
I would rather you didn't dig into it till after we close.
Because I didn't have any
As soon as
knowledge.
she said that made me nervous too. I was like,
Can I have any knowledge?
Well, what if you start digging into it and you find out that there's all kinds of other problems with it that you didn't know about before? Then now Jamie, as you learn material facts and you start to dig deeper, which is great, that's honorable.
But isn't there some buyer
It's the job
beware
of
at this
buyer's
point in the
agent.
contract? At this point in the contract, what do I have to disclose?
Any new material fact that comes to your attention.
Not that I know of.
And you can't sweep it under the rug and be like, oh, yeah.
We're recording this.
Well,
No,
actually, I did hang up and said, I'll call you back later. I told the city that.
yeah, I would really prefer you don't make that phone call until after closing.
I got some great advice from Kyle. I was in this weird
Even after closing.
situation.
But don't you want to know?
I do want to know. I was in this weird situation where I was dealing with this guy, and we were looking at this giant property, and there was some building permit that had been there for 7 years, and blah, 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 and the agent was a little squirrely. And he kept saying, my client kept saying, well, just go to the city and have a conversation. Just go to the city and have a conversation. And Kyle was like, no. Go to the city, but he has to come with you.
At a minimum, but
Yeah.
and I would prefer, you know, in a perfect world, Your client would go to the city by themselves.
That's right.
Because this is a
Yeah.
super important point, and I have said this 1,000 times in meetings, but I haven't brought it up here, so thank you. When your client tells you to go investigate something for them, no, hell no, hell to the no.
They do it.
They do it.
Yeah.
But see, I wanted to know if he was right.
But you have to wait until closing and then.
You're the listing broker. What do you care?
I'm like, I don't know if that really is
I don't
code.
agree with it wait till after closing either, because then it just shows for the proof, if they do come back to you, that you suspected that there was a material issue to your knowledge or your seller's knowledge, and then you immediately after closing start researching, look into it, and then find out.
But we never
would say that
claimed it was
looks-
to code. We've never ever
But
said
if
this
you
house
do the
is to
research
code.
and then they come back and you slip up by saying, oh yeah, I
Sorry,
checked with the
excuse
city.
No.
I think that's,
Subsequent
Is that
knowledge.
loud?
I would
I think
also
it's-
say this, here's where it matters. Now, in this situation, you want to know very
Very
little, but when you're representing the buyer,
Right. So it's kind of, I think I'm
Why
looking at it
you're
for
hired.
long-term knowledge, but maybe I research it in a little while.
yeah. Clear your history, clear your
Just a
history.
quick question. Okay, so if it's not advisable to go to the city and investigate more, I mean, can we at least know how much water heaters cost? Can we investigate how
Oh,
much
yeah.
new furnaces cost and new water
Oh,
heaters
yeah.
In
cost?
Home
And-
Depot any day.
Because if, for example, Jamie knows exactly how much a water heater costs and exactly how much a furnace costs and stuff like that, she doesn't necessarily have to disclose to the listing broker that his estimate is off when he says maybe
Well, it's not
$800,
material.
right? I mean, how do you,
But you don't know the conversation that they had. And so I think that's, you're second guessing what the other agent is doing for their client. If they're having some random conversations about what things cost and how to approach it, it's for all we know, they're saying, hey, you know what? We might just rip out this whole bottom floor.
Right.
We might just blah, blah, blah. You have no idea. So it could be that they're just like, let's get a gesture of money out of them.
Right.
That way we feel like a win.
Right.
Okay.
What would it take for that to happen? They come up with $1,500 and everybody moves on. So I think it's a mistake to start second guessing
Or what that money's for.
what the agent is having, the conversation they're having, because you have no idea.
I guess I'm trying to get a feel for boundaries, like what you're supposed to know versus you don't want to know.
Well, I think that's the big conversation where even if you have the knowledge, because working with Kyle and owning a rental and all that kind of stuff, I have a lot of estimates in my head.
Right.
For my client who's buying, I say to them, you need to get estimates, because they'll ask me, what do you think it's gonna cost? And I always give some broad range,
Okay.
or I'll say, I specifically used this specific company for this specific issue, and it cost me this much. But you should,
Yes.
here's 4 people,
Okay.
make the phone calls, find out, get somebody out there. You as a homeowner need to know these things and develop these relationships with people who are gonna help you take care of your house. So you're doing them a favor.
You're giving them contractors,
Yeah.
a number of contractors.
Yep.
And they're doing the work.
They
You're
do the
not
work.
calling them.
That's
contractors
correct.
directly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Because and this is my pitch on that, because it does feel a little funny, like you're supposed to be some great service person.
Yeah.
But my pitch on that is like, and I have a lot of buyers in their 30s, early 30s, and I just say, listen, like, I run all over town for you, but that's not my job. My job is to help you prepare yourself to get into this specific home.
You want to hear my pitch?
So you need to find out, you need to talk to the inspector, you need to be there, you need to get the bids, you need to arrange the meetings and
Mhm.
see that this is what it means to own a home.
Mhm.
And if you're not ready to do that, or this house is gonna mean too much, then you've learned that. If I step in and kind of try to fill that gap, I've done nothing to educate them.
That's full on love and logic. But you know what I genuinely say to my clients who like want to do something unique with their property is I say, maybe they want to split the lot in half, and can they split the lot in half? They're like, Rich, why don't you go down and check that out for me?
Yeah.
Could you imagine what would happen
Yes.
if you went down and the planner told you yes,
One thing,
you close, they go to and talk to a different planner, they say no way in heck?
yep.
You're in a massive lawsuit, and you never should have done that in the first place.
They have to own that. I get that.
They got to own that. Now, what I genuinely say to them is, that's exactly what I say. I say, look, what happens if I go down there, they tell me one thing, and then you go down there after closing, they tell you something completely
Yeah.
different. What would be a better way to do this?
Yeah, that's the exact thing that I said to my buyer way back. I just said, you know what? I get why you want me to go down. That's great, but you know how nefarious these conversations can be. I'm gonna be a lot more comfortable if you get the information and tell me. And that way, if something weird happens, which you know is possible, then that information was communicated directly to you,
No,
not to me.
I don't think it's unreasonable to get reports. So I don't think it's unreasonable to get a rental license. I don't think it's unreasonable to dig up building permits. I don't think it's unreasonable to do basic stuff, but I can tell you two stories. One is I sold a really complicated piece of land out in Broomfield on 35 acres that had conservation easements, it had oil and gas leases, and I have no less than 9 emails saying to the buyer, you should check with a land use attorney, you should check with an oil and gas attorney. And I saw it, and did they ever? No. Why? I don't know. I'm guessing it was they didn't want to spend the money.
Oh, they didn't think, everybody thinks it won't come
It'll
up. for them.
never happen.
It'll never happen.
Yeah.
And then I'm seeing them, and sure enough, what does the buyer say to me the last time I ran to them? Oh, they're gonna work over the well, and they're gonna start doing all kinds of oil and gas production out of this well again, which had pretty much tapered off to nothing. Like, that's a real bummer. I wish we knew that before we bought. And I was like, I want to strangle him. I wanted to strangle him because I was like, really? This is how it's gonna go. I mean, it was crazy.
They felt angry with
So,
you?
what's that?
They felt angry with
Oh
you?
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And so the best thing I ever did was I sent them an email that said, by the way, you need to do this. I've got another situation right now, and this is my own personal,
Who's this?
I think
Oh,
these are,
You know, it's on the hill staff. I recognize a few of them from the.
What are they doing?
I think it was, they're celebrating, Brenda's got a birthday or something.
Oh,
I
that's
don't know.
cool.
Anyway, another situation I have right now where, and this is really the other agent, but we went through, we did this transaction, and word has gotten back to me that the buyers feel that something wasn't adequately disclosed to them. This was a roof leak, okay? And that the roof had problems prior to closing. I have no less than 5 emails to the buyer's agent saying, there have been problems with the roof. Let's coordinate a time for you to meet Boulder Roofing out there, and you guys can go look at the roof yourself. And one of the emails back from this other agent to me said, you know, I used to be in construction. I'm sure I can handle this with them. I'll figure it out. And we're meeting the roofer out there tomorrow at 3.
Oh, man.
Okay? And so it really put me in a much better position of, we disclosed the crap out of it. We said, have the roofer, meet with the roofer, make sure you guys are comfortable. This isn't a simple roof. It's kind of an ongoing maintenance roof forever, the way it was designed. We thought they knew that. And I guess they bought it. They had an interior designer they were using as their GC. There's a good idea. They put in all new hardwood floors, and a week later, there was a deluge of rain. It came in through the house and destroyed all the hardwood floors.
Oh, God.
I've now heard they've completely overframed the roof now, which means they built up another framing system on top of the existing roof and have just completely redone the entire roof. Pretty wild, huh? For hundreds of thousands of
Oh,
dollars.
my God. Wow.
What's the statute of limitations in Colorado? It's 3 years.
I truly apologize for that lady party that just happened. I'm really sorry.
What's the statute of limitations? When does the statute of limitations begin? How many years? When does that clock start ticking? It's when the client discovered the problem or when they should have discovered the problem. In our situation, I'm guessing it was discovered pretty thoroughly within 4 to 6 weeks after closing. And right now we're at 2 years and 4 months, 2 years and 5 months.
So wouldn't it have been when you pointed it out?
That would be an argument. I think there's going to be an argument. If they let the statute of limitations go after the date of closing, I think there's going to be some arguments as to whether or not, it's even relevant. I mean, I don't mean to be sick, but it's the same thing with Bill Cosby, right? I mean, there's a statute of limitations on all these horrific things he potentially did. So, there's a time period where you can sue, and there's a time period where you should have sued that you didn't.
Right.
Okay. Does that make sense?
So are they going to pursue legal?
We don't know.
Okay.
And the advice of legal counsel is to really just sit back and do nothing. Why try to fix something when Why would we be the impetus for this conversation to begin? This is really the job of the buyer. Okay. And whether the buyer does anything about it or not, I don't know, but I suspect they may. Does this all make sense? So a couple huge takeaways. One is you do not become the buyer's source of information, especially for things that could become a problem. Okay. So like anything when you're going down to the building department, that's a problem. That's a red flag. Okay. Unless you're just going down there to maybe get all the building permits, and then present that information to your buyer and say, here's the building permits for the property. You really should have a conversation with the building department and they can give you an answer about that. Does that make sense? Make sense? Okay. The other thing on Jamie's transaction was.
Well, sorry, on
That's fine.
that, I think that it's really good to have the experience. Like, I know you're saying to dig into that later. If it comes up, then you can advise a client better. But I think that now you've got the experience of if something comes up, then you know what to do. And that's when you kind of dig in. Is that correct? Or are we supposed to have that knowledge ahead of time? Kind of like you were saying, where you'd want to know.
My position was, since we never presented the house as being a code, and we don't even know what they're gonna do down there, I was really just curious. What code was right now, because I don't even know if it's grandfathered, there's exceptions because it's a 1954 home, and who knows all the extra verbiage that could come along with it. I'm just curious, like if I put a heater in tomorrow, what's code?
Well, that's for the HVAC person. And Marie, that kind of goes back to your question, which is, well, can't we just tell them what a new furnace costs? And the answer is, you could send them a link that says, here's what Home Depot is charging for a furnace. But the real catch-22 in that is, this is a 1954 home.
No, GC, that's my other house. GC is a 1910.
So it's a 1910 house. So really where you get into issues is, well, the furnace is in a bathroom. Okay, that's probably a code violation. Does the new furnace flue, is it adequate for a modern day furnace? What if it's a single hull flue, meaning one layer, you know what I mean? Versus like, I think now it's required a double hull or double layer flue.
Mhm.
Okay, well now we have to take a new flue through a 1907 house, from the basement through the main level, out through the roof. Okay, and what if that's impossible, and what if the venting is inadequate? So maybe then we go with a high efficiency furnace that has much smaller vent pipes. Okay, well now we've gone from a basic furnace at $2,500 hard cost or $2,000 hard cost without install cost to a $7,000 furnace, and I'm just using fictitious numbers because I don't really know. That's where you get into the danger of just quoting hard cost for Pandora box types items. What about a dishwasher? So I was over at a house last night with the stager till about 8:30 going through this house, and she's like, you should replace the dishwasher. And they've got granite countertops, and I'm looking at it going, it looks to me like the wood floors were installed after the dishwasher was put in, which
Stainless steel contact paper.
which means you can't pull this dishwasher out because the lip of the wood floors is there, and then I open the lid, and it's
You have to take one of the two.
so. And what happens when you lift granite countertops? They crack. It's toast. So so it's either a $5,000 job to put on new granite counters because you're going to destroy these, or you take off a section of the hardwood floors, but then you got to refinish that section. Well, then you just refinish all the hardwood floors in the house. So we've got a $5,000 job without installing the dishwasher, right? And I'm like, time out. Let's not do that, right?
Representing the seller.
So present the seller.
I guess the corollary is, if you were the buyer's agent on this transaction purchasing the Louisville home,
Mm-hmm.
what would you have done differently, knowing the age of the house and seeing what you've seen already? What would you?
Good question.
Good question.
Well, I think it comes back to Chris's point about what they want to do to the house, because like in mine, we didn't care about anything. We knew we were doing a full
Yeah,
remodel.
but I just want to know what he would have done if these people want to own or occupy.
If they want to owner occupy,
If they're
so
owner
let's go down that road.
I think that's the
It's an
trigger right
excellent
there.
question.
He's the devil's advocate.
So I'm the buyer's agent. I know the house. We all kind of know what the house needs. Jamie comes back with an inspection report, and you give me a bunch of ticky-tacky items, big deal. And then you give me 4 kind of big enchilada type items. And by the way, for a house built in 1900, whenever it was, 7, that's pretty minor.
Mhm.
But what I would have said to my clients is, you know, we should go ahead and get some bids for what it's going to cost to have a new hot water heater installed. And we should probably find out, if we don't have the gas line tested, what would the ramifications potentially be in a worst case scenario, so we can understand those. Okay, what were the other items?
Well, I think one of the trigger items for this is one of the reasons I was curious about the code, is because since they've lived in this home themselves, the water heater's been in there for 5 years, they have no problems. They feel very confident that they're in a safe home.
Right.
And if somebody else is going to be owner occupied, they're probably just move in.
Mm-hmm.
But my concern is, if they're going to put tenants in there, now they have a different liability for someone else's life.
Sure.
And I think that might be a bigger issue for them than they realize.
Right. I was just wondering to know how you would attack this problem.
So who am I? Am I the buyer's agent, or am I you, the listing broker?
You're the buyer's agent.
Okay.
So how do you attack the problem of what you see? So you would have solicited bids for the water heater.
Yes.
Who do you talk to test the gas? I mean, who is?
Probably the same guy,
Okay.
because it's a plumber. A plumber probably can do that. Yeah.
Okay.
What were the other 2 big items?
Changing the amps in the circuit in the kitchen stove,
Big deal.
Islands.
Electrician.
right?
You get a bid from an electrician.
Get a bid from an
And then-
electrician.
And then actually they wanted the sewer cleaned, but the sewer scope report did not request clean. It did not say cleaning was necessary. But it did say that there is probably needs to be replacement in a couple of years, which is $3,000 to $4,000. And they did.
Who gave you that number?
That was on the audio of the report with the sewer scope guy.
The buyer.
The buyer.
That seems really cheap.
Well, a portion of it's already been replaced. So it's only a portion of it that does.
Oh, there's a
still need-
portion.
They've already done one.
And the other thing you can do is you can line sewer pipes with an epoxy,
Okay.
and you might have someone look at doing that as well
So you would have hired somebody to look at the sewer
and get a bid. And I probably would have had to extend the inspection resolution deadline.
Yeah.
And I would have had to extend it, and then I would have had to go like mad to coordinate people getting in there to get bids for my buyer.
So would you do that? So when you walk through this house on your first showing as the buyer's agent, you see the water heater in the bathroom. You know that that's not supposed to be there as the agent. So would you do that all at inspection? Or would you just do that up the front when you make the offer? Say, we know that there are these items that we're gonna have to do. Let's lowball it.
I mean, honestly, Carla, I didn't even know it was a problem until this situation. Now I do. So it's a learning moment for me too,
Okay.
right? So now I know. And so at a minimum, what I'm going to do is set my buyer's expectations that, look, this is going to come up in the home inspection. And I do that. Like last night, I have a very type A, everything should be perfect buyer. And we're walking through this 1967 home in Longmont. And I'm like, well, this is going to be a total shit show on the home inspection, because the buyer's going to, I'm like,
Is this by my Venice house?
what's
Is this
that?
up by Venice?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I said to my client, I said, here's the deal. You're going to have 50 to 60 items on the inspection report, and you cannot anticipate that the seller is going to fix these items. The home inspection is for major structural systems and safety issues. Beyond that, who knows? And even then, oftentimes you're going to get a seller that comes back and says, we've had the water heater like this for 5 years. We've had no problems.
Right, it's fine.
It's fine.
You'll be okay.
Because, well, what do you do? What do you do for work? Are you a HVAC plumbing contractor? No, I cut hair. Okay, well, then you must absolutely know that it's fine, right? I mean, it's malarkey.
I
And
think as a buyer's agent, getting, that's why I think it's so important to have that knowledge from the city, even, it's just to be able to spot the issues. And especially on both sides.
but you're trying to become a home inspector.
Well, right now I can't, I'm backing out now, but in future. I mean,
In
it might
future-
trigger, hey, you need another inspection, you need another bid.
But my home inspector told me about 3 years ago, he's like, Rich, you either have to stop coming or you have to stop acting like a home inspector. And this is from the attorney, so you guys chat amongst yourself. I'll be right back. Hi, this is Rich. Hi, Julia.
Oh, I have a question. On estimated taxes,
Yeah, huh?
I should, before I pay my 30%, it should be 30% after I figure out my deductions.
You mean your expenses?
My expenses. Yeah, you do that. Like, I worry I didn't do it now, when would I factor in
It'll
that
all
expenses?
true up at the end, when you do your tax return.
It would.
Okay,
I do call her, but she's leaving out on me, and I'm in a crisis because I'm gonna have to go find. What do I do? I go find a new security right now? Okay, just gross. Yeah. Okay. How could you underpay?
now I'm assuming the buyers should seek legal counsel when doing this, so this shouldn't just be something that brokers advising the client to do, correct?
Do at the end of each payment. You
There's
get penalties
penalties
for.
for
So I should just, for my first year, I think this way, I should just look at the gross that I've taken home and make 30%. Each quarter, even though it's a line. And then work on getting my expenses down, because I need to look at books on that.
If you do quit your
Books,
self-employed,
can I, is it the program where I can take a picture of my receipt now and automatically know it's in?
it does your computer has to do your probation for answers, and if you pay for QuickBooks Self-Employed, which I do, it has a mileage tracker app that comes with it. And if you link your bank accounts and credit cards to it, and it doesn't. So you are like one of the CPD, and that way you must.
Okay,
I mean, I look
Okay.
at QuickBooks.com and bought it, so. I don't know the difference.
If you log into their site and do all your stuff.
I haven't spoken with the buyer's agent in my office in the last hour, and so I don't know if anything has evolved since then. And so before you make that phone call, I would like to have a conversation with that broker to see if that is going to be something that would escalate things to make things worse or better. So let me make that call and I'll call you right back. Okay, thanks so much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Can I ask a quick question?
I need to make,
Just get coffee. We should just. I'll buy you guys.
you getting coffee?
We're going
I'm
to.
gonna get a decaf right now, actually. Trigger. Let's put this voice out really up. Okay, that was your.
I'll expense you guys if I can.
Because this is what I'm reading, is that whole Myers nice county.
This one's really nice because you just turn it on when you're, in the car and it just transfers.
You have to turn on it and get in the car.
Do you want to know what the client goes to or you just walk on? No,
Hey, so I did speak to the paralegal over at Fresco's office,
they took away my force starting.
and they're happy to make a phone call to the listing broker
Yeah.
and say, where are we at here? You know, they of course come back to the options either being escrow, which we can't do because of the lender, or I'm assuming, or extending the closing, as long as your client wants the house. If they really want the house and the seller doesn't comply, then the last resort is going to be for your clients to retain, like Ben over at Fresco's office, and they will record the contract against the property, basically securing the rights. And when the seller has everything done, you guys will close. Do you want me to have the attorney call the listing broker at this point, or would that just make things worse?
So does your,
I don't know.
so does your QuickBooks tell you your estimated quarterly payment? Mine does, but I don't know how much to trust it. Mine says we have 0. And I don't know if I trust it or not.
Okay, so I'm just going to wait for you to text or call me
But I think it's.
and let me know when you want me to pull the trigger. But the correct answer is if the seller doesn't perform and the buyer wants a house and absolutely can't figure out another avenue, then they'll hire Ben or somebody to record the contract and just wait till the seller gets their act together. That's it.
Right, but I mean, it's
Yeah, absolutely. And I will wait for your call. Please call me at noon either way and just let me know whether we need to pull the trigger or not.
So, I'll say that one.
if you need to speak to the listing broker, if you feel that this would help, you could also certainly call the listing broker and say, the buyer's, looking at retaining legal counsel, and here's the advice we've already received. So, we are not forced to close today if you guys have not performed your deal. Okay? I learned something as well. You're welcome. Thank you. Call me. Okay. Bye-bye.
If you use TurboTax to file your taxes, I've done it in the last 2 or 3 years myself, so it costs you like $40, but this wraps in. It pays for your online filing. So.
Julia, one more call. You guys are done.
Potentially, I could just file my taxes.
Essentially.
I did last year.
I figured I'll do that one more time this year.
I'm gonna do it again this year.
But next year, I plan on getting a higher income level. I'm just like, I don't want the headache.
Yeah.
So I'm not this month.
You work in a CPA firm, and you also, then I have to have buyers and taxes.
Mhm.
And I had to count everything into their ordering system. It's like 4 hours, people might stop. They reviewed it, pushed a button, I gave them like $600.
Yeah.
Well, my chick,
I
like
know
I said, it's some kind of crisis. She's been filing issues. She's in a crisis. Couldn't get a hold of her. Then I found her filing an extension. And I told her about this. I had to physically go to the office and say, and then I thought, well, my lawyer, I said, listen, I just have things to report the taxes. No, nobody wrote me back. The office manager, nothing. So finally, I'm like, I'm going to go look at the calendar because when I use the calendar, it makes it didn't work. So I've given up on that. So I'm like, Dad, I've been using this thing for like 6 or 7 years. So it's weird. So,
Sounds really strange.
Hello, you have reached Fresco Net.
until August, okay, this is, I'm done. Like, obviously, I need to get this done. So I'm just, this morning, I was just like, well, I'll just do 30%. I'll just do
Hi,
30%.
Connor for Julia.
And I was looking at the numbers.
There's a lot of
Rich Dana.
Keep writing a check for it.
And I just wanted to double check today. Then this is the best approach. And it sounds like it.
And
now
it's the easiest approach, it might not be the best, but I should call somebody.
Hey, we're gonna wait till noon. We feel like we may just kind of, the nuclear option is not, we think we're gonna push the button at noon, but not before, and see what kind of headway we can make, okay? So I told the broker in my office to either text or call me at noon, and then I'll just leave a message for you if you're at lunch, and I'll have you either do nothing or, push the button. So thank you for your help. Okay, thanks, bye. That's pretty awesome. So did you guys get that?
On your call?
Yeah.
Or did that eavesdrop you?
Oh, that's too bad. That was good. It should have eavesdropped. I have a client in the car yesterday afternoon who I'm fairly certain works for the Culinary Institute of the Arts. And, I always give her a hard time and say, who'd you assassinate today? But she was in the car with me twice yesterday and phone calls came up and she's like, I'm not in a secure location. She tells me some organization she works for. I'm like, yeah, right. And she goes, even if I did, I couldn't tell you. I'm like, I got it. So.
What was their advice to you? Or you want to wait for?
No, we're done. So I think I described the situation to you earlier where we have a seller that's not complying with our buyer's inspection resolution. And we don't know if it's going to happen or not. At this point, the listing broker has gotten off their tail and is trying to get things done. But the big question is, will they? And what do we do? Because the buyer still wants to buy the house. So the nuclear option, assuming the buyer still wants to buy the house, is the buyer retains legal counsel, they record the contract against title to the property, effectively clouding the title.
It's under contract.
And then we say, well, we'll be glad to close once you guys decide to perform on the seller's end. By the way,
That basically extended your closing legally. without you having to do an amended
Because
extend.
they're not gonna close without title.
Well, we can't get the seller to sign the amended extend,
Right,
right?
exactly.
But they
Right.
can't really go on to another contract and sell it.
Because the attorney for the buyer has totally clouded title.
Right.
And so no title company's gonna
So,
close on it.
yeah, so they'd have to close with them or come to some other resolution.
Shit, how much do you have, how much did that cost them? A couple $100s?
Oh, I bet you're at $500 or $600 before, you
So you
know,
said file a contract against the property,
record.
record it, okay.
So now I'm telling you legal advice. So,
I just take notes on everything.
yeah, no, I'm saying absorb this in, but we're well into the attorney should be doing this, not the real estate broker.
Right, don't take this one phone call and another issue as you can give legal advice on other issues.
Right, but it's just a good thing to learn of to like, well, how would we resolve this?
It helps
Yeah,
get that red
no, that's really
flag
good.
popping up in your head, like,
And could you do that as the buyer? Like if the seller wasn't doing what they were supposed to do, you could close the title?
You
Or
could.
no, that's what the situation you're in.
Yeah.
Could you do it the other way around? If you're the seller and the buyer wasn't doing what they were supposed to do for
No,
whatever
because
reason.
you can't.
You're
it's your
clouding,
little
you're
title.
clouding
It's
your own title.
you know.
You wouldn't want to do that
You can
because
resell to somebody else.
you may have the opportunity to sell to somebody else.
Your argument is, well, I'm keeping the earnest money.
Mhm.
I'm disputing
Yeah.
the earnest money. That's their
That's the
nuclear option.
Got it.
So remember in the sales contract, what are the two options that the seller has? When you write the contract as a buyer's agent, you either don't check any box and it's automatically a liquidated damages contract, or you do check that box and it's specific performance, which means we can take your earnest money plus
Make you do it.
we can sue you to buy our property, plus you will pay our legal fees. Remember all that?
Yeah.
So it gets pretty heavy duty.
You said this particular situation, the contract is specific performance?
It's not.
Oh, I thought you said it was one.
Mhm.
Well, I did for the seller. Isn't every contract specific performance for the
That's what
seller?
I was just gonna ask. I
That makes sense.
was like, okay.
Because if you think about it, that's actually correct in the way the contract was drafted by the real estate commission. Because if I'm the seller,
You only have
And-
specific.
I mean, yeah, well, wait, it's a specific performance contract. What if I get an offer from you for 500 and Jimmy brings me an offer the next day for 600? Wouldn't I just, if there was a way for me to punt and get out of your offer, I'm gonna do
You
it.
would just keep, coming up the ladder until you finally are satisfied.
That's totally, and can you imagine in a market like this,
You
I-
can't prove damages, you have nothing to sue for. It'd be hard to prove damages.
If
You
you're the
just want
buyer,
house, You're the buyer.
it's a
You sell me
mess.
the house, you agree to sell me the house, you sell me the house,
Right.
right?
Now, buyers in this area all the time accept specific or liquidated damages contracts. And you have probably seen a lot of listing brokers out there asking for only 1% earnest money. It's a $350,000 house. We'll take $3,500.
I'm seeing a lot of that.
Big deal. I'm the buyer. Okay. And I'm like, I found a house I like better. And I'm going to eat the $3,500 because I know it's 2 days before closing. Too bad, so sad. The sellers have already moved to a different state. I mean, they're gone. And by the way, they're buying a new house in the new state that's contingent on this closing. So they're moving out there with 2 kids, a cat, a dog, the wife, the husband. They're planning on closing on this house. It's all said and done. We're past loan approval. The earnest money is non-refundable. And the buyer says, oh my God, this house is worth so much more. It's the same price. I can't believe I got it under contract. I'm just going to eat the $3,500. I think the listing broker really messed up only taking 1% in a big way. And that's why I always say, at a minimum, take a 2% earnest money. I've had other situations where, and this is classic from that same company that Carly just did a deal with. That seems to be their MO a lot. So I had a situation where
Really quick on that.
not using any names.
No, really quick on that point. Is that because specific companies are more open to agents who kind of know what they're doing? They're kind of more like loan shark kind of people. Keller Williams, RE/MAX, the kind of agencies that they don't really bring people up as agents. They just have a lot of people who, is that correct?
It's the culture of the office.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to teach you is that when a broker comes to you and demands something of you, well, is that really what the contract says? And is that really what you agreed to? And do you need to answer that other broker right then and there? Or can you say, let me call you back? Or in Jamie's case, Jamie's kind of taken the strategy of, I'm going to listen to the voicemail, think about what the answer is going to be, and then return the call. It's actually not a bad strategy.
It actually gives
I
you the
don't
upper
think, I
hand.
really want to think about it. Was it?
So it gives you the upper hand in any kind of negotiation.
And I learned from experience that you never know what they're trying to get to. Like they call and say one thing, and then they're like, well, what, have you talked to your lender about this and that? And you're like, oh yeah, well, that's not what you said the other day. And I'm like, I didn't know what you were even asking me. Like, what was the point of this conversation? And what were you trying to get out of me? So
Right.
Kind of nice.
Okay.
Can I ask a real quick question?
Mhm.
I was showing a 4-bedroom house, and the lower 2 bedrooms didn't have an egress window. Is egress a safety issue that you would mention if you were the buyer's agent?
Yes.
I always
Okay,
point it out.
so, because every egress, well, I've seen egress windows put in, and they're about $3,000 a piece, thereabouts.
Depends on, there's a lot of factors in that. So it might be more prudent to give a range and say, you know, a basic window is 3,000, but again, if there's extenuating circumstances, it could be more.
Right, well, I mean, if they dig 2 at the same property, they'll give you, they'll do it for 5,000 or something like that. But I mean.
But there could be other issues
Okay.
in putting in those egress windows.
So if you were the buyer's agent, you would ask for an allowance for those 2 lower bedrooms because they do not have egress windows.
No. And what if the house was built in 1962?
Right, it's fine. It's 1962, so.
Okay. And I have it listed, and I have right in there, all bedrooms conforming. No.
Right.
So I'm selling you this house, and you're buying this house with the knowledge that the bedrooms are not conforming, and you're going to submit an inspection objection to me and says, well, there's 57 things in this house that are not up to code. And I would say, you know what you should do? You should go buy a brand new house somewhere because this isn't the house for your client.
Okay, so as a buyer's agent, this is not a safety issue as you mentioned when you said in the inspection objection was safety, structural, that kind of thing. So in this
I hear you.
case,
Yep.
this is not a safety issue.
The bank doesn't care.
Okay.
It's a non-conforming bedroom.
It's a non-conforming bedroom. It is what it is, right?
Right.
But now, you know, if you have a situation where I've advertised a room as a bedroom and in the closet is a furnace, and I've listed it as a 4-bedroom, in reality, that is not a bedroom. That's not even close to it. That's a, you know,
It's not a living space.
it's not.
You use it as a living room.
I think there's a difference between, and this is just my personal opinion, if you have a non-egress window, that's one thing. If you've got a furnace in the bedroom and you're having people sleep in there, I think that's questionably, and this is just my personal opinion, I don't even think that should be listed as a bedroom. That'd be my opinion.
Okay, but a non-conforming bedroom is not a safety issue.
Well, if you're purchasing the property and you're going to rent that room out, or you're going to put somebody down there that's sleeping in there, it is.
Okay.
But is it?
So
But-
if you're the buyer's agent, how do you make that decision, whether to put it in the inspection objection or not?
I think
So I think
if
it
I
depends
came
on
back,
the-
if you put, that would be the sort of thing, industry standard wise, that you should not expect a seller to correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think if you put it in, the seller's just gonna go absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
You're wanting me to upgrade the home.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
that's huge.
Right.
No,
I
that,
was just wondering if that was what you call a safety issue.
I think it is a safety issue, but I think it's beyond industry norms that a seller would correct that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, in a really big time buyer's market where the property's been on the market 437 days and they're desperate,
Right.
cream them.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Okay, so this whole thing is all case by case. There are no real rules
Exactly.
and boundaries and parameters. There's just
Well,
case by case.
One thing I would say to you real quick in regards to your window wells is be very, very, very careful if you're walking clients through the house that you're becoming an expert on window wells on this house and not on that house. And let me play this out. Let's say you go to the first house. You're like, just so you know, these 2 bedrooms in the basement are non-conforming. Well, why, Maria? Well, because these bedroom windows are too high and the bedroom window opening is too small.
Right.
And the depth from the window to the back of the window well is not deep enough. Okay, so you don't buy that house. You go to the next house and it looks right and you don't say anything. And it turns out when they go for their rental license that it's non-conforming. It's an inch too high. It's an inch too shallow. It's 3 inches from a cubic perspective, not big enough.
So an inspector would catch that, right?
An inspector should catch that. But my point is, if you're becoming the expert, if you're perceived as the expert, if you're commenting on that issue in one house and not on another house, you are becoming the expert home inspector. And Jimmy, this kind of plays into what you were saying as well.
Right.
You know, I think when you start becoming the home inspector, and this is why my home inspector told me to shut up or don't come to my home inspections anymore, is because I shouldn't be perceived as the home inspector. I shouldn't have, if you want to be a home inspector, be a home inspector. If you want to be a real estate broker, be a real estate broker. But don't be a real estate broker and start acting like a home inspector.
Well, if
You're going to get sued.
If I'm walking a family into a house,
Mhm.
with 3 kids and the parents, and it's a 4-bedroom place, is it my duty to let them know that the 2 lower bedrooms are non-conforming and that, from a code perspective?
It's right on the MLS sheet, and I think you should. I think you should say, you know, my MO, when I showed homes, I did this yesterday. I go, at the end of every home that we look at, when we drive to the next home, are you okay if I just play devil's advocate with you or point out the things you should expect if this is the home you're going to purchase? And by the way, these are going to be situations on every property. So I'm not trying to talk you out of buying any of these properties. These are just things I observed as a layman, as a non-home inspector. Yeah, sure, Rich, that'd be great. Okay, well, on that last house, what did I notice? You know, you notice the driveway had settled quite a bit. And you may be able to mud jack it. We hope that's the case, but you may have to replace it. That's quite expensive. And they're like, okay, so I'm setting my buyer's expectations should they buy that house, that here are some, but not all of the items that they may discover during the home inspection.
It's my understanding that you can't have somebody spend a lot of time in a bedroom that's non-conforming because it's not code safe, basically. So those 2 lower bedrooms that do not have the egress windows, I thought according to code, somebody can't live in those bedrooms full time.
We see families put their kids in non-conforming bedrooms all the time, and we see it in rental situations too, don't
I
we?
say
Right, I know.
80% of Boulder has basement bedrooms that are probably non-conforming. It's not
right.
anymore.
But is it my duty to point that out to them, that according to code that they shouldn't have people living in those bedrooms?
Or
Or is it
just say
their,
they're non-conforming and
It's up to
it'll come up on inspection. And if they want to put their grandmother or their kids, like that's their issue. They're gonna have all the information. They're gonna get an inspection. They should, whether they waive it or not.
but if they come back and say, I didn't know what a non-conforming bedroom meant.
Oh, you can tell what a non-conforming bedroom is. Here's what that means. It doesn't have a proper closet. It doesn't
Right,
have a proper
But
egress.
the implications of a non-conforming.
I think you're taking it too far.
I do too.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I'm just trying to get a sense of.
Yeah.
what
No, it's good. It's a good question.
Okay.
And I also, I don't know if I should, but I also do this, have this conversation like, oh, I do the thing where I'll be like, the driveway, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll be like, of course, maybe you don't care if the driveway settles more. Non-conforming bedrooms, here's what that means. And then again, maybe you're one of those people who you don't care about the window wells. Let's just talk the talk. I noticed some roof shingles were missing. That could be an issue for home insurance. That could be an issue for one. We'll find more. Maybe that's not urgent to you. I'm always like,
When you're selling in Heatherwood, because they love Heatherwood, you're going to have a Federal Pacific electrical panel. You're going to have aluminum wiring. You're going to have soil that loves to expand.
yeah.
You're going to have an older house with non-conforming bedrooms. You're going to have a plethora of items.
Issues.
Right.
If these are concerns to you as a buyer and you can't deal, we're going to go to Erie and you're going to buy a new home.
Yeah.
That's it. You know,
Yeah.
and I had to have that conversation with my buyer yesterday. It's not realistic.
It's not.
You want to buy an older home in Longmont, you have to accept the fact that these are the things that are going to be found.
Yeah.
And by the way, the more expectations you can set up front,
Yeah.
the more likely you're going to get it closed.
Okay.
Because one person, Chris, may have a really good conversation up front with her buyers, and they have the home inspection. And they're like, oh, this is everything we expected. There's more on here, but Chris told us there would be more on here because Chris isn't a home inspector.
Right.
Great. We get it. Let's ask for these 5 things. And then Eric, no offense, I'm just going to use you as the bad example here. Eric goes in and says, isn't this home beautiful? Look at the new granite countertops. This home is immaculate. And then they get, it says nothing about the home inspection, the fact it's a 1973 home. And they go in and they get the home inspection. And there's the same exact 67 items that were on Chris's list. But Eric has set no expectations. The only thing that he has said is, wow, this is amazing. And they go in and the buyers flip out.
I had a guy, I have to tell the story, engineer.
Oh, so that's
Yeah.
red flag number 1, 2, and
Yeah, yeah. And so on his inspection, and I did all of that prep because I knew every home we've been in, whatever. And he got the home inspection, and the thing that really bothered my engineer was that there were a couple trees that were really close to the foundation, and the inspector noticed that. And so it bothered him so much, and he was so concerned about it that he wanted me to put it in the inspection objection, which we did.
take the trees out.
And he's getting bids.
Wow.
They've got to be trimmed back. And meanwhile, the buyer's getting bids, having tree guys come out there, and the seller is there for that. And so for the resolution, Ted Baker, the agent, called me back and was like, "Here's the deal. If you don't call off this tree situation, my seller is going to fail. He loves his trees. He doesn't care how close they are to the foundation. They've been there for 10 years. He loves his trees. Plus, not to mention, the house is immaculate. Like, these people have taken care of this house.
Wow.
Like,
How close were the trees?
I mean, again, this is a great example. Yeah, a foot. Let's go with that.
Probably not the best, by the way, just so we're all.
Not great.
That's,
On the other hand, I'm looking at the trees, and having lived in the mountains and older homes, I'm looking at the trees and I'm going,
Okay.
maybe trim the tree back. I don't know. I don't know if I'd cut the tree down.
So
Anyway,
he
but
was concerned
he
about
was
the tree
assessing-
falling on it or the roots coming under
roots.
the.
So what happens to a tree? This is your tree. This is your foundation.
Yeah.
What happens right here? It gets a root ball.
Yeah.
So right when it goes in. So what happens when the wind blows at 70 miles an hour? This root ball pushes against the foundation. It's not great.
It's not.
And you should talk to your home inspector and have your home inspector and you make an informed decision as to whether or not you should cut the trees down. Is the seller going to do it? That would not really be industry norm
It's
or
weird.
common for a seller to just do
Let's
what
whack
Mr.
the
T
tree
did.
out.
You know what
I'll
Mr. T did
cut
in
it
Chicago? He cut down every
So
tree of his
how
lot.
I did was
He did.
we came in 15 over asking. We were in a bidding war.
Okay.
And then we had to jazz about it was a 25-year-old, we're almost 30 years old, and they had gone out. I had great strategy by the seller's agent. Had already previously, as before they put it on the market, had a roofing company come out and give it a 5-year certification that it would last 5 more years. And they just dangled that, like, oh, we're giving you this roof warranty for 5 more years. So
And what's a roof cert worth? Dog poop.
yeah,
They're crap.
I know.
They're crap.
So, and we had done the as-is bullshit, by the way.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
so as-is, because I already knew from talking to her, whatever, and hanging out with God. So, yeah, as-is. They're all as-is, dude.
Yeah.
So we came back, but we kept the inspection, but I said in the pitch, we're waiving appraisal. We're keeping the inspection. It's a new home buyer. We're looking at major things. That was my line, okay? So we get this roof thing back, and we end up in the negotiation. I basically say, listen, we want $5,000 off the asking price to deal through. We got a bid. The bid's like $8,000, and so Tech came back and said they fought us on it. They didn't want to do it, but they were like, burn the hand. They came down to $5,000, and we got rid of getting rid of the trees thing, and that was that. But talking my buyer out of the tree situation, because everything that came up on the inspection, and I knew this was the way it was going to be, and I had done a lot of 3 months of prepping. 3 months of prepping, right? And so and I kept saying, listen, every single thing, every doorknob, every screw loose, every battery that's missing, and every single thing is going to come up. So we're looking for the major things. We are not going to give them a laundry list. We're going to focus on these things. Okay, they've got 6 other people in the wings who'd be happy to buy this house. So let's not fuck around, basically. And so we got everything on the roof, and we got rid of the tree thing. And it was nice. But also I have to tell the story that we went to the walkthrough, and the sellers were there. And they were so, they had all this animosity. They were like,
Wow.
Really?
yes,
And how'd that go? I wish I had a camera.
Ted did not forewarn me that they were gonna be there.
Oh, God.
And I was late, traffic was clear.
Ted may not have even known.
No, I think he knew.
Ouch.
I think he knew.
Just wanted to.
These buyers were also, and the sellers were also engineers, pretty controller people.
Oh, God.
So I get there and my buyer and his buddy are standing on the sidewalk in front of the house. I'm like, okay. And they park in the driveway. They're kind of aggressive, knowing the sellers are home, which none of us knew. But I go to do a lockbox, there's no key. So I turn the knob and I open it and I go, hello, and they're there. And the seller is socially awkward. So he's like walking around, touching everything.
Who is your buyer?
Yeah, yeah. Touching everything, hitting buttons, like just like, oh my God. And I actually had not been in the home because I'd been out of town and gotten Jenny to do the showing for me. And so I'm like, I haven't been in home. And I just kept trying to talk to the sellers and get them to calm down, which worked, but it took some time. And it was very
Did they go to closing or sellers at closing?
we were, and then we were closing the next day, and thank God that I was there for the walkthrough and everything, and because we worked on the horse, I kept saying, gosh, you've just done such a great job taking care of this home, what a great property, where are you guys moving to, isn't your agent?
While your guys just go around doing crazy stuff.
Yeah, and
Oh
the
my
sellers,
gosh.
and so it worked out, but it was so tough.
Stressful.
Not all,
Really,
not all engineers are socially awkward, but a lot of them are.
Oh, wow.
This one is, and I know awkward, not to say a bad thing, but I'm a special needs teacher, I a wide range of what awkward can look like, and I love my buyer, we're still buddies, but man, he was really, literally, they'd be like, here's the thermostat, and he would just start pressing buttons. I'm like, dear.
It's not your house yet. It's not your house
But
yet.
his attitude was like, there's people in my house, I don't want them out.
Oh, gosh.
He was really aggressive.
Your
And that
buyer?
happens. So you remember the property I sold on Lilac in Lacamora in Broomfield? We had open houses and we had one couple come through. By the way, they brought the highest offer for like $360,000, $350,000. And the reason we didn't go with them was twofold. One, they didn't have a high down payment. But the real reason we didn't go with them is the husband was Johnny Know-It-All, wanted to be a structural engineer. So he's down the crawl space for 45 minutes, and I can hear
At
him
an open house?
at an open house with his wife and the whole both of their parents telling them everything he knew and about how this was going to be a huge problem with the structure.
And they put an offer on the house?
They put the best offer on the place,
Wow.
and so I sat down and presented the offers and said, "Let me tell you what you're in for with these guys." I mean, and I can't believe his broker didn't say, "Hey, you may not want to do this in front of the listing broker because he knows that he's in for a $20,000 credit to you, and you know what?
Doesn't make your offer the best offer anymore.
It killed him. But he had to be
Mr. Noah.
Mr. Know-It-All, dude. Let me tell you all about how special I am. The ego came out in full force.
No, can anybody smart
He
tell you?
he killed his own deal.
He killed his own deal.
And every
I
subsequent.
should probably tell his broker that.
Every subsequent.
Can I have a question on a different subject?
Do we have, yes, we've got about 3 minutes left. Are there any other inspection issues? We covered a lot today, but any questions on
So
anything?
can you ask on your final walkthrough for the people not to be there? Are you allowed to do that?
Yeah.
They should never be there to
Because,
find.
well, it wasn't, so the one that I had that was like, sorry, I really want to hear it, but the one that I had, it was Caldwell's, and I did the final walk for him, and the tenants were there. It was like a rental property, and the tenants were there like, yeah, this place sucks. And oh yeah, they said that, they never do anything. And like, I'm there with the buyers.
Did 4-Star manage it?
Yes.
That's
Well, and
awesome.
the weird thing was, the tenants wanted to renew their lease, then they went on the market, and then it sold, and then they couldn't renew anymore.
So it really
And so they were
sucks.
really pissed off. And so can you ask for people not to, like, can you ask your tenants?
Not
to
for
leave the lease?
tenants. No, it's impossible for tenants. But what you could have done, and what any of you
I
should
just
do,
walked in there blind. Caldwell called me up, and he's like, Carly, can you run over there in 15 minutes? I'm like, sure can.
so whenever you're doing a transaction where there's tenants in the property and you're showing the property, if the tenants are there and they're willing to talk to you, you can say, hey, have you had any problems with the property? But you might want to forewarn your buyers that tenants are generally irritated that they're getting the boot. And so they're going to paint the property in the most negative way possible. And they're going to make the property look horrible and wait for the home inspection because there's going to be dishes all over the sink overflowing and it's going to stink. Okay, your question.
Quick contract question relates to Jefferson. So, we had this extra list of inclusions that my client was willing to send with the property because they had kind of a makeshift kitchen in the basement.
This is the other buyers.
So I'm representing South.
Same one,
Oh, no,
same
same house,
property.
Same house. They had kind of a funky little makeshift kitchen in the basement because her dad lived down there for a while.
Right.
So they were going to include another refrigerator, an upright deep freeze, countertops, a sink that had running water, a toaster oven thing, a Keurig,
I think it's pronounced Keurig.
and a rolling toolbox thing, right? So we put this in a special thing, and put it in the MLS, here's extra
A
inclusions.
bill of sale.
Well, no, that is not point yet. Here's the point, is that this other agent wrote the contract, wrote the offer with inclusions that were only in the MLS.
Then they're excluded.
Right. But he did put in there, but this is my basis of my question. He wrote the word freezer. In our extra inclusions, we said upright freezer. And in our regular inclusions, it doesn't say freezer, it says refrigerator. So how am I going to clarify with him what freezer are they wanting without opening a can of worms?
Is there more than one freezer? There's two
No,
freezers.
There's one upright freezer in the
There's-
basement.
And that's what he asked for.
Well, his language is freezer. It says,
In the contract?
in the offer. Window coverings, electric range oven, double oven, dishwasher, refrigerator, one. Clothes washer, clothes dryer, which we agreed to. Microwave, freezer, garage door opener, disposal, smoke alarms.
I think you sold the freezer
I
in the
think you sold the
contract.
freezer.
You
Only
sold
the upright freezer that's in the basement. I don't need to clarify. We're just gonna leave the upright freezer.
Yeah. just leave
You
it.
did.
And I'm gonna tell my tenants right now to start pulling the stuff out and get it sold. Sell on Craigslist if they want to.
You want to make it easier for everybody? Say, yeah. The problem is if you pull those things out and they were expecting them to be in there,
But that's their agent's fault.
that's their agent's fault. And I know that you think he's a twit, and he
He
is,
is a twit.
but, and I think you should just let that out in here. But you may make things a little bit smoother if you say, there's a couple other items in the basement, they're gonna sell them. But did you guys want to buy them?
Right, do you want to buy them? Because they were part of the offer.
Exactly.
Offer price.
And if he says, oh, we definitely thought those were included, say, well, you know what? It's not in the contract, and
We noticed you listed
we
the
took a
freezer,
really
but
low
then
price
also
here,
thought we went
guys.
over it.
and if you wanted these extra things, it would have been $15,000 more.
Ooh.
Kidding, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It would have been
But I
$100,000.
like the language of, I'm trying to clarify this because like our buyers, our sellers are going to sell these items. but
Right.
They're not in the contract. Clarifying whether your buyers want to buy them. That's
Right.
it. Do your
That's
buyers
it.
want to buy